The House will come to order. And today we have the color guard with us to present colors.
Color guard, hold. Ready, move. Guards, present arms. Colors, ready, move. Post the colors. Guards, port arms. Ready, move.
The Pledge of Allegiance will be done by Frankie Sue McCoon from Stober Elementary in Lakewood, Colorado.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Frankie. I also want to thank Cadet Colonel Hannah Christian, Cadet Major Stephen Christian, Cadet Captain Christopher Franklin, and Cadet First Lieutenant Lincoln Rosh in honor of Civil Air Patrol Day. Thank you for being here with us.
Representatives Arndt, Biker J, Biker K, Representative Kay Becker,
Majority Leader, excuse.
Beckman, Benavides, Bridges, Buck. Buckner. Carver. Catlin. Coleman. Covarrubias. Danielson.
Oh, that's right. Morning. How y'all doing?
Excuse.
Escar. Everett.
Excused.
Exum. Foot. Garnett. Janal.
I've never felt so popular in my life. I've had so many calls.
Gray. Hamner.
Oh, no, I'm sorry about that.
Hanson. Herod. Hooten. Humphrey. Jackson. Kennedy. Kraft Tharp. Landgraf. Lawrence. Lee. Leonard. Lewis. Liston. Lontine. Lundeen. McKean. McLaughlin. Melton. Michael St-Genet excused. Neville. Pabon. Pedersen. Rankin. Ransom. Ryer. Roberts. Representative Roberts.
Excused.
Rosenthal.
You right there.
Sane. Salazar. Salazar.
Excused.
Sandridge. Sias. Singer. Representative Salazar is present. Singer.
Excused.
Thurlow. Valdez. Van Winkle. Weissman. Willett. Williams. Wilson. Winkler. Winter. Wist. Young. Madam Speaker.
Here. Representative Covarrubias. Good morning.
Good
Hold
morning,
on.
Madam
Actually,
Chair.
just one second, Representative
Madam
Covarrubias.
Speaker?
We're not quite ready for you, but so just one second. I saw you running down in the middle of the well. With 59 present and 6 excused, we do have a quorum. Representative Covarrubias, now you are up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of the Journal of Wednesday, April 11th, 2018, be dispensed with and approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
All right, members, you have heard the motion. Everyone in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying no. Representative Covarrubias, that motion passes. Announcements, introductions. Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Golfers, can I have your attention, please? So tomorrow morning, which is Friday the 13th, by the way, from 7:30 to 9 o'clock in the Old Supreme Court chambers will be the annual Colorado Golf Alliance Day. They'll have coffee and snacks. They'll have actual PGA professionals, amateurs, and enthusiasts, and they'll talk tips to improve your golf game. Hope that you join them. Thank you.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Foote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members wanted to draw your attention to some of the information that's been put on your desk this morning about the Civil Air Patrol. Of course, you heard that the Civil Air Patrol cadets did the color guard here this morning. They did an excellent job. And the Civil Air Patrol is likewise an excellent organization. They do primarily search and rescue work and help with disasters around Colorado. They have a really good cadet program that teaches leadership and teaches lots of good skills. I think the minimum age for a cadet is 12, I believe, so I look forward to my daughters turning 12 so I can encourage them to be in this, but of course by the time they're 12 they'll probably not want to do anything I ask them to do. So I will ask them to do it. I think it's a good program. I hope you will also take a look at this information. There's 2 brochures on your desk that I'm holding up right now for you to take a look at. Please consider the Civil Air Patrol, and if you're not a member as a representative, please see me and we'll make sure that you are. Thank you.
All right, further announcements and introductions. Representative Pedersen and Representative Lundin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have a tribute and ask Mr. Randall to please read it for Colorado Christian University. Members, if you could please be quiet as we read our quick tribute.
The House of Representatives convened in the 71st General Assembly hereby extends sincere commendations to Colorado Christian University. Colorado Christian University is the premier interdenominational Christian college in Colorado in the 8-state Rocky Mountain region, delivering world-class education to thousands of students. In 1914, Denver Bible Institute was founded on 2 principles, grace and truth. The first classes encompassed only 2 students and 1 teacher, but from those modest beginnings, Colorado Christian University was born. Today, the university consists of 2 schools, the College of Undergraduate Studies with a traditional residential program, and the College of Adult and Graduate Studies, offering non-traditional undergraduate programs and master's degrees through more than 100 degree programs. There are more than 8,000 CCU undergraduate and graduate students spread throughout all 50 states and several countries, scholars dedicated to integrating high-level academics with timeless faith. The members of the Colorado House of Representatives are proud to extend our appreciation toward Colorado Christian University for their countless contributions to their students and to the well-being of the Centennial State. On request of Representative Brittany Pedersen, given this 12th day of April 2018, State Capitol in Denver.
Representative Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. The Colorado Christian University is in my district. I always enjoy knocking on doors, meeting the students there. Really appreciate everyone joining us today to be recognized. And Representative Lundin would also like to say something.
Representative Lundin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Speaker. From 2 students and 1 professor to more than 8,000 students around the world, based on the principles and the pursuit of character, competence, and faith. If you would please, President Donald Sweeting and some members of the CCU student body and faculty are over here. If you please rise, we'd like to acknowledge you. Thank you for what you do for our community.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for your service to Colorado. All right, members, many of you may know that the Colorado Avalanche made the playoffs, and today we and today we have Bernie the St. Bernard and other representatives from the Avalanche. We're so very excited that we're going to be hanging a flag outside of the Capitol. Go Colorado Avalanche. Thanks so much for joining us. And congratulations. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Also, I would like to introduce to you my fellow colleagues, the other dogs in the House, the Florence Huskies from Florence High School, Florence, Colorado. Welcome them to the Capitol.
And we're thankful to have all the dogs in the house. Some others are in the doghouse, but today we have the dogs in the house. Further announcements or introductions. Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Do you want to come up? And for any of you who were not able to see all the dogs in the house, you have an opportunity tonight to go to the Colorado Society of Eye Physicians and Surgeons reception, University Club, 5:30 to 7:30, and they will be giving eye exams.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I too wanted to ditto the a reception by the Colorado eye surgeons. As somebody who had a detached retina a few years ago, I can greatly appreciate the good work of what Colorado eye surgeons do. I'm a living example. I can see you today because of that. So I do appreciate that very much.
Representative Liston.
And thank you. And members, it's been a little while since we've
And members, we do have announcements and introductions. I know there's lots of excitement with the Colorado Avalanche making the playoffs, but we do need to have your attention.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Liston.
Thank you. Members, it's been a while since I've had a chance. I've been sidetracked by the, but we have some good economic news today, and this is Colorado-based. Polaris Alpha Industries has just announced that they're adding 300 new high-tech jobs in Colorado Springs and 150 jobs here in Denver. This is Colorado specific. These are cybersecurity jobs, intelligence analysis, software jobs, information technology services jobs. The average salary is $50,000 to $60,000. It's equal opportunity and it's equal pay for both men and women. Let's hear a shout out for the Colorado economy and Polaris Alpha Industries. Thank you.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Kraft Tharp. And Representative Kennedy.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this is a little bit of somber news. As I had mentioned yesterday, today is the day that we are wearing hockey jerseys to take a moment to be able to recognize and the hockey team, the Canadian hockey team that died on Friday in the car crash. 16 hockey members who tragically lost their life at a very tender age. So if we could take a moment, and Representative Kennedy, you want to say anything?
Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, members, I only started learning about this a couple days ago. A Jeffco citizen who both Representative Kraft Tharp and I know, named Katie Winter, brought this to our attention and asked us to bring it to all of your attention as well, that on Friday of last week, tragically, there was a collision between a bus with a Canadian hockey team, a youth hockey team, on their way to a playoff game, where there was a collision with a semi-trailer in Saskatchewan, and 15 members of the team and their team trainer all tragically died. So we would just ask for a brief moment of silence.
Moment of silence is granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, members. Further announcements or introductions. Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor and a pleasure to serve with you.
It is an honor and pleasure to serve with you too, Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you. So, members, this is a very special occasion today. I'd like to offer this tribute to Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez. And so if it's okay, I'd like to have Mr. Randall read it for us.
The House of Representatives convened in the 71st General Assembly hereby extends sincere commendations to the Gonzalez family in honor of the legacy of Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez. Born on June 18, 1928, Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez grew up in Denver, living amid poverty and discrimination. Corky earned his nickname from one of his older brothers who enjoyed humorously commenting on Corky's sometimes fiery attitude. Following a short but very successful boxing career, Corky's intellectual nature drove him toward his education, and he became a prominent poet. Through his poem, Yo Soy Joaquin, I Am Joaquin, which earned national recognition in 1967, and his outspoken leadership in the Mexican-American Chicano movement, Corky strove to promote Mexican-American culture, nationalism, self-determination, and historical pride. Through his galvanizing speaking and leadership skills, Corky earned a place as one of Colorado's distinguished supporters of social justice and equality. The city of Denver dedicated a library to Corky Gonzalez in 2015. Corky's legacy is also carried on by his daughter, Nita Gonzalez, who led the Escuela Tlatelolco Charter School for 35 years, and Rudy Gonzalez, who currently leads Servicios de la Raza. These organizations have worked tirelessly to promote Chicano cultural pride, education, and equality in Colorado and in the United States. On request of Representative Paul Rosenthal, given this 12th day of April 2018, State Capitol in Denver.
Thank you. Good job, Mr. Randall. Good job, Mr. Randall, reading that off, especially Escuela Tlatelolco.
Tlatelolco.
Yeah, I'm working on it. So thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This is a very special occasion because this is someone who really is an icon in the city of Denver and also nationwide, as someone who really not just it's not a matter of tolerance, it's a matter of how do we promote and celebrate the Latino and Chicano culture here in the United States. And so I'd like to introduce you to some folks. Or actually, maybe I'll do, it looks like some members would like to say a couple words, or, okay, so maybe I'll do the introductions at the end. Would that be okay, Madam Speaker?
Sure.
Okay, why don't we do that? Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Rosenthal. Discussion, Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, Corky Gonzalez was an icon in the Latino community, and I'm not just talking about Denver. I'm talking about throughout the Southwest and throughout the country. I was one of those people who were lucky enough to have been able to know Corky. You know, my family first met him in the 60s when he was a captain in the Democratic Party and recruited my father as a precinct committee person. You know, he was able to organize and get people excited and civically engaged. And he and his family continued to do that. He was also, I mean, other people will talk about some of his accomplishments. I know his wife is here, but I just want to tell you from a personal side, he was the kind of man who always had a twinkle in his eye and always, always made time for children. You know, both of my daughters, who are 38 and 25, he knew them, he'd always talked to them, and they always felt so important around him. And that was the effect that this man had on everyone that he would meet. You know, people may not have agreed with his politics, and that's okay. But they agreed with his courage, with his integrity, and his worth as a man. I recall when he died, thousands marched in his funeral procession through Denver, from the north side over to Curtis Park on the east side of Denver. And people from around the country came and spoke about the importance of this man in my history and the history of this state and of this country. So I think this is so appropriate to recognize Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez and his family. So thank you, members, and I urge you to, if you don't know about this man, to listen to the remarks today. Thank you.
Further discussion on the tribute.
Okay.
Representative Herod.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just want to give my sincerest thank you to the entire Gonzalez family. Corky Gonzalez has a legacy in Colorado and throughout this country. I have to give a shout out to House District 8, where the family resided and was raised, as well in Northeast Denver. There is a true legacy in Northeast Denver because of the work of Corky and the family. Corky's grandson, Sergio Gonzalez, was my college roommate, and we got our start in student government together. He is my best friend, and fought alongside of me as an activist for all of those years. He now works in Senator Kamala Harris's office. And so the legacy is long, and it's rich, and we have such a debt of gratitude to offer to Corky Gonzalez, but especially also to the family who continues that legacy. And so I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank the family, and I just want to thank you guys for accepting me into your family as well. Rudy and Nita specifically, you all have really been a huge part of my career and shaping my understanding of the community on the ground, and I can't tell you how much that means to me, and it's an honor to have such a large family now, so thank you.
Further discussion. Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the Corky Gonzalez history is imbued in the north and west side of Denver, which I have the honor of representing, and many of the Gonzalez family members I still represent. And if you've ever had a chance to drive through House District 4, you can't help but notice the rich cultural history, the library that we have, the school that we have, the number of monuments and tributes throughout our district that recognizes the struggle and the success of the Gonzalez legacy. And so in doing this, Representative Rosenthal, which we very much appreciate, I think it highlights not only the big picture national impact that the Gonzalez family has had on civil rights and all rights all over the country, but it also, you can literally drive 4 miles from here and see the epicenter of where it all took place, largely in House District 4. So I encourage you to come visit and take a look.
Further discussion on the tribute. Representative Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want you to take a look at this photo of Corky Gonzalez. Take a look at him, because it was about 40 years ago that this man, this visionary leader, was considered persona non grata in certain areas. He was called a rebel rouser and a troublemaker, and he was even called a terrorist because he was fighting for Chicanos here in the state of Colorado. He wasn't afraid, and he was unapologetic about his words, and he even said things that what's wrong with Democrats and Republicans is it's a two-headed monster drinking out of the same trough. Those are some famous words of his. And here we are in 2018, and now we get to see what a visionary leader he truly is. A man who was branded in negative terms 40 years ago is being honored in the House of Representatives. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that it would take us 40 years to catch up to his intellect, to his genius, and to his vision? Corky Gonzalez serves as an example for so many of us here in this chamber, where we are unapologetic about the bills that we run for our communities, because we know that underlying our bills, it just doesn't help out one community, it helps out all communities. We are unapologetic in the fact that we fight the way that we do, because we know that if this man 40 years ago could fight for his community, well, so can we. Corky Gonzalez serves as an example to the great extent that, and I'm sure you've noticed this in the past 6 years, that every time roll call is done and my name comes up, I never answer in English. I always answer in indigenous language or in Spanish, because I want every member of this body to recognize that long before this land was the United States, it was Mexico, it was Spain, and it's always been indigenous. He gives us, even to this day, he gives us the steel in our spine. Much like Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Rosa Parks, and so many others. This man is our homegrown leader. And I think that an awful lot of why he did what he did came from that fighting spirit that he had, where he was a contender, he was top-ranked boxer, and he took that fighting spirit and he honed it for social justice, much the same as we saw with Muhammad Ali. It is just and it is right for us to honor this man. I thank Representative Rosenthal for doing that. But at the same time, I want to recognize that it's probably 40 years too late. That we should have honored him 40 years ago when he was out on the streets fighting for all of us, when he was fighting for social justice. Maybe that's just how we are limited as human beings, is that we just don't have the vision that catches up with our great leaders. I want to thank the Gonzalez family, and of course we have former Senator Polly Baca here as well in support of the family, and also members of Servicios de la Raza, and we have people who are associated with the Escuela Tlatelolco. I really thank you so much. I know that it was such a sacrifice for you and your families to see Corky do what he did for social justice. I know that he got death threats, and I know that there are often times when the family was afraid. But you shared him with us. You allowed him to serve as a historical figure for us. And in that sense, the family is historical too. Thank you very much.
Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so, members, I'd like to introduce you to the family that we have heard so much about. First of all, starting with his wife, Geraldine Gonzalez. We also have his children, Rudy, Nita, Gail, Charlotte, Valerie, and Joaquin. We also have Senator Polly Baca, the first Latina senator in the state of Colorado. Tomas Lopez, a Lakota pastor who gave a wonderful invocation this morning. Z. Ferrafino from the Hispanic Chamber. And the rest of the Gonzalez family, who should please all stand so we can recognize you. Thank you. Gracias. And thank you again, Madam. Oh, did you guys want to say a few words? And thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members from both sides of the aisle who came to recognize Corky Gonzalez today. And members, thank you for your time. I know we took a little while, but thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Madam Speaker.
And thank you, Representative Rosenthal, and thank you, members, for your consideration. And to the Gonzalez family, on behalf of the entire General Assembly, thank you for all that you have done to advocate for civil rights and for working people, and all that Corky did to stand against injustice. With that, announcements and introductions. Any further announcements or introductions? All right, seeing no further announcements or introductions. All right, seeing no further announcements or introductions. Would somebody like to make a motion? I'm kind of feeling like just up here. Assistant.
We're going to do thirds and then come back to seconds. We're going to do thirds and then come back to seconds.
All right, that takes us to third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1114. And before you do that, Mr. Randall, members. So we're very thankful to have wonderful guests with us today. We do have third reading to go to now. Mr. Randall, please read the title, and members, we're going to third reading, so we do need to have the ability for people to hear the bills. Mr. Randall.
House Bill 1114 by Representatives Janal and Buckner, House Senator Todd, concerning the regulation of genetic counselors in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, members. I move for the passage of House Bill 1114 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is a passage of House Bill 1114 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Rare.
Please close the machine. With 36 yes votes, 28 no votes, and 1 excuse, House Bill 1114 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. All right, Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1263.
House Bill 1263 by Representatives Hooten and Melton, all Senators Quorum and Fenberg, concerning adding certain conditions to the list of disabling medical conditions for medical marijuana use in connection with adding autism spectrum disorders.
Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1263 on third reading and final passage.
Question before us is passage of House Bill 1263 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 53 yes votes, 11 no votes, and 1 excuse, House Bill 1263 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1286.
House Bill 1286, President Roberts, House Senators Aguilar and Marble, concerning allowing a school nurse to give medical marijuana to a student with a medical marijuana registry card while at school.
Assistant Majority Leader Gurnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1286 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is passage of House Bill 1286 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 47 yes votes, 17 no votes, and 1 excuse, House Bill 1286 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. That would take us to second orders. But I think there'll be a change. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the following bills be made special. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said something. Be made special orders at 9:50 a.m. And members, all the existing bills on general orders and then all the bills that are in appropriations are going to be put on the special orders calendar. So that's House Bill 1272, Senate Bill 66, Senate Bill 71, Senate Bill 195, Senate Bill 202, Senate Bill 76, Senate Bill 156, Senate Bill 144, House Bills 1260, 1279, 1002, 1176, 1179, 1189, 1200, 1285, 1301, 1341, Senate Bill 33, Senate Bill 68, Senate Bill 108, Senate Bill 132, Senate Bill 141, Senate Bill 143, Senate Bill 207.
All right, seeing no objection, that list will be made special orders. Representative Bridges.
Madam Speaker, I move the House now resolve itself in committee of the whole for consideration of special orders.
All right, members, you have heard the motion. Representative Bridges will take the chair, seeing no objection.
The committee will come to order.
With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested, as they are printed in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the Majority Leader. The Coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill. Representative Garnett.
Actually, continue. Sorry, go ahead with that title.
Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1272.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Mr. Chair. I
Representative
move to
Garnett.
lay over House Bill 1272 one day till Friday, April 13th.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, 1272 will be laid over at the request of the Assistant Majority Leader. It said majority. Majority. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 66.
Senate Bill 66 by Senators Sonnenberg and Garcia, House of Representatives Arndt and Wist, concerning extension of the operation of the State Lottery Division beyond July 1st, 2024.
Representative Arndt. Representative Wist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 66. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this extends the lottery, and I think we all know and recognize the significance that the lottery has played, the amount of dollars that have gone to all counties in the state that have provided recreational opportunities for citizens. It's one of the easiest votes I hope that you'll cast this year, and I ask for your support for Senate Bill 66.
Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the lottery will continue because that's in our Constitution, but this re-ups the division that manages the lottery. So we ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion?
Okay, sorry.
Representative Lewis.
All good.
Here we go. There's a comment.
Comment, excuse me. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I came down here this morning because I want to talk a little bit about GOCO. I realize that this bill, Senate Bill 66, extends it on. The Colorado Lottery has done a lot of good across Colorado, but I want to talk a little bit about what some of the recent transactions have been from the Colorado Lottery and from GOCO. In my part of the world, GOCO has been helping fund to buy private property, and I don't think it's right. I don't think that we should use our lottery funds. I don't think we should use GOCO funds. On February the 14th of this year, it helped Southern Plains Land Trust, a group that has purchased around 18,000 acres in southeast Colorado. This is larger than any state park in Colorado. And they have helped to fund this at the Heartland Ranch. And this ranch is supposed to be for bison, pronghorn, prairie dogs, and coyotes. Well, I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but prairie dogs and coyotes will never be in extinction, and I'll tell you why. They're some of the toughest little species that'll ever happen, and I don't think that our lottery dollars should be used to be out there saving a preserve for those animals. Whoever are the neighbors around Heartland Ranch, this 18,000 acre ranch, which is bigger than the city of Boulder, whoever are the neighbors will have to fight these prairie dogs and these coyotes from now on. You have to realize those of us that are cattle producers, those of us that are sheep producers, those of us that are goat producers, we live and exist and pay our bills and our taxes from what we make off of our livestock. And I just don't think that it's right for GOCO to be spending money to help purchase land in fee title and helping land trusts. They also are a sponsor of COMAP. They are at the platinum level. And is this what we want it for? My own county commissioner, Tom Wallace from Bent County, sent a letter to GOCO begging them not to donate money for this Heartland Ranch, and they did it anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, Southern Plains Land Trust is just a spin-off of Wild Earth Guardians. They're there to create a preserve, but they're not the only preserve in southeast Colorado. That 18,000 acres right at the bottom of it says
The land will be protected with a conservation easement held by Colorado Open Land. So there's 18 more thousand acres. They're worried about development. Development that doesn't happen in southeast Colorado, but we're going to stop development. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be a no vote on this bill just because I believe that even GOCO, who says 25 years ago what they're for and what they're going to do, they need to relook at what they are doing. And I urge you for a no vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 66. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 66 passes. Representative Garnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to proceed out of order for the immediate consideration of House Bill 1355.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, Mr. Randall, please read the title of 1355.
House Bill 1355, Representatives Pedersen and Sias, all Senators Gardner, Moreno, concerning changes to the accountability system for the elementary and secondary public education system to strengthen the accountability system for the benefit of students.
Representative Pedersen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1355 and the committee report.
Thank you. To the committee report. Just a conforming amendment.
We had to bring a conforming amendment, and I ask for your support.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Education Committee report. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The committee report passes. To the bill. Representative Pedersen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this is a great bill that took 7 months of stakeholder work. I just want to thank everybody for coming to the table to solve some of the issues that we're seeing in our state, to help in supporting our school districts earlier and giving them the help that they need when they are on the clock. And I ask for your support.
Representative Sias.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just add that this bill, as a result of tremendous stakeholder work over many months, came out of the Education Committee by a vote of 13-0, and that was the result of some terrific work. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1355. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1355 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 71.
Senate Bill 71 by Senators John and Carter, House Representative Escar, concerning extension of the repeal of the State Substance Abuse Trend and the Response Task Force in conjunction with making an appropriation.
Representative Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I move Senate Bill 71.
To the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this bill simply reauthorizes an existing substance abuse trend and response task force that has been put together by the Attorney General. This task force includes members throughout all of our communities coming together to tackle all of the issues around substance abuse. I think this is something that's very important, especially as we continue to talk about the opioid epidemic, we talk about the heroin epidemic, but this also digs into all other types of substance abuse as well, brings experts from across the state together to have these discussions. I think it's a very important task force. I'm honored to be a part of it, and I'd love to see it continue so we can continue researching and doing good work. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion of Senate Bill 71? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 71. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 71 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 195.
Senate Bill 195 by Senator Moreno, House Representative Rankin, concerning the requirement that the money in healthcare affordability and sustainability fee cash fund be appropriated annually rather than continuously appropriated.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 195. There's no committee report.
To the bill.
Okay, Senate Bill 195 changes the continuous appropriation of monies from the what's called the Healthcare Affordability and Sustainability Cash Fund. This is the previous version. Previously it was called the Hospital Provider Fee. Last year when we ran 267, we continuously appropriated that money. The JBC feels that the legislature should have oversight over those appropriations on an annual basis, and so this bill changes that appropriation from continuous to annual. I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 195 as well, members.
Is there any further discussion of Senate Bill 195? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 195. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Senate Bill 195 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 202.
Senate Bill 202 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning exemption of the Colorado Firefighting Air Corps fund from the maximum reserve.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I move Senate Bill 202. There are no committee reports.
To the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this bill exempts the Colorado Firefighting Air Corps Fund from the maximum reserve. And as you can imagine, this reserve should be let to grow above 16.5%. Because of the needs regarding wildfires, are varied depending on the season, and I ask for your support of this important JBC bill.
Is there any further discussion of Senate Bill 202? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 202. Those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes resoundingly have it. Senate Bill 202 is passed. Mr. Randall, please read the title. Representative Garnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're doing a great job. I move to lay over Senate Bill 76 to the end of the special orders calendar today.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, Senate Bill 76 will be laid over. Representative Garnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 156 one day till April 13th.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, Senate Bill 156 will be laid over one day. I need someone else to take the chair.
Sorry, we got a little musical chair. Let's just do it Willett Bridges.
Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 144.
Senate Bill 144 by Senator Kerr, also Representative Willett and Hansen, concerning the regulation of bicycles approaching intersections.
Representative Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 144 and the Transportation Committee report.
To the Transportation Committee report, Representative Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were 3 amendments in Transportation Committee. One simply renumbered some paragraphs, a technical amendment. Another struck the legislative declaration because it frankly was a misstatement of the law that came out of the Senate. I won't cast any aspersions there. So they just took that off. We don't need a legislative declaration, and they're not recommended. And then finally, there was an amendment put on in the Senate that excluded this bill from the state highway system. That turned into a real problem because no one even knows what the state highway system is, and basically would have rendered the bill meaningless. So that amendment took off that state highway system.
Is there any further discussion on the Transportation Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Transportation Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Transportation Committee report passes. To the bill, Representative Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, this is the bill that, well, some of you hate to love. But this is the sweetest. Well, some of us hate to love it and love to hate it. But this is the sweetest little counterintuitive bill you'll ever see. This bill, if you're in favor of law enforcement, it's good. If you're in favor of bike safety, it's good. If you're in favor of automobile safety, it's good. If you're in favor of construction equipment and trucking, being able to move through intersection, it's good. Furthermore, this bill is already in play in 3 counties in the state. Well, 2 counties, 3 municipalities. Summit County, Pitkin County, places like Breckenridge, Frisco, and Aspen. More importantly, it's been in Idaho for decades, and that's why it's sometimes called the Idaho Stop Bill, and I'll get to that. In Idaho, the statistics have shown that bicycle-related accidents have gone down significantly, so it's safer for everyone. The easiest way to figure out what this bill does, folks, first of all, it's not a statewide mandate. This sets a structure
that our local municipalities and counties can opt into if they choose. So it's total local control. What it does is it allows a bicyclist to treat an illuminated stoplight like a stop sign, and a stop sign, octagonal stop sign, like a yield sign. That's the simplest way to understand the bill. Why is that good? With our distracted driving that's so prevalent, when a motorist rear ends another car, you might have a little ding on your fender. When you rear end a bicyclist, you're going to have some broken bones or worse. You don't want to be that driver, and you dang sure don't want to be that bicyclist. By being able to come up to a sign and do what we call a track stand stop, to where we stop and look and get on through that intersection, it removes that bicyclist from in front of you as a danger risk. It also allows you, when you get to that intersection, to be able to get through it. Another key thing is bicyclists, if you've ever noticed, they clip in and their feet clip into these pedals. If they have a slight hill or they're not a strong cyclist, don't you get frustrated when you got 4 or 5 of them? They stop, they clip out, they can't get going, you're waiting. Furthermore, that's dangerous for the cyclists, because once they get going, it's hard to get momentum if cars are coming at a 90-degree angle. Now, if you're one of those cars, here's somebody struggling in the middle of the intersection trying to clip in, and you've got a real risk. Why is it good for law enforcement? You know, I've been involved in various, over my 30 years career, traffic safety councils and national organizations.
Looks like we have some interest.
The law should reflect what the 80% bell curve of people do. 80 to 90% of cyclists do this anyway. You all see it. Well, does that mean all cyclists are not law-abiding crazy citizens? No, they're doing it because this is the safest way to do things. So now our law enforcement aren't writing tickets. Why are they not writing tickets? Because they intuitively and know through studies you don't write tickets to what 90% of the people are doing. With this law, we now have a structure so the real abusers, those guys that blow through that thing too fast, let's start writing them tickets. So it's good for law enforcement, it's good for safety, it's good for motorists, it's good for commercial truckers. I have a whole packet of stats. I don't know if my Prime would like to go into some of those, but 14.5% decline in injuries in the entire state of Idaho, and in Boise, the capital, 30 to 60 fewer crashes since they have had this, and they have had it for 35 years. Folks, it's just really counterintuitive, but it's really hard to make a logical argument against this bill. Thank you.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank my co-sponsor, Representative Willett, for doing a great job of explaining what this bill does, what it is, and what it is not. I would just add a personal story to this discussion. It would appear that we have some interest in this bill on second readings, which I am extremely gratified by. This bill is personal for me because I used to ride my bike to work every single day. I had about a 3.5 mile ride to work. It was actually quicker on a bike than it was if I would have been in my car. But in the course of 5 years of commuting by bike, I was hit 3 separate times. Now, luckily, I'm still standing here before you. I got some pretty serious bumps and bruises and scrapes in each of those incidents. And every single time, it was what's referred to in the bike world as a right hook. I am coming up to an intersection, and invariably somebody's on their phone, see distracted driving bill, and they start to make a right-hand turn and don't see that there are bicyclists next to them. And I got hit 3 separate times in that exact situation. Now, this bill has been shown by several studies from around the country, including the one that Representative Willett mentioned in Idaho, to drastically reduce those types of incidents. And that's really what we're focused on here. Allowing local governments, where appropriate, to put these rules in place, and will make the bicycling public more safe and adds to road safety. And it is a little counterintuitive. You know, we think about our rules of the road, and why should there be any exceptions to those? Why should those change for bicycle riders? Well, the reason is because it makes us more safe. And that's really the genesis of this bill. And with over 35 years of experience in Idaho with this bill, and the statistics being very clear, 30 to 60% reduction in bicycle automobile crashes in Boise. That's very compelling evidence, and this is going to be something that I think is going to be very good for Colorado and to improve safety. So I look forward to the discussion this morning.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To start off, Representative Willett, I've got a question for you, Representative Willett. Does this apply to my Dodge truck at stop signs? I can treat them as yield sign?
Representative Willett.
Is that electric-powered Dodge truck that you have, or is that the big diesel? So big diesel, the benefit of diesel is they have tremendous torque. So on hills and elsewhere, they can get going and get through the intersection. That's why it doesn't apply to motorcycles or cars or anything else. It's not needed. When you're clipped into a bike, it's hard to get going again. You're hard to be seen. That's why it's needed for cyclists and not other motorists.
Representative Wilson.
He already went.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was just a question. Now I'm going to start. So I have a question, colleagues. We talk about our roads and highways and making them safe. Well, you put that Dodge truck pulling a mule trailer, meeting an 18-wheeler in the Bighorn Canyon with bicycles on the road, there's a challenge. But now we're being asked to make the road safer for bicyclists and tougher for the motorists. And just so you'll know how passionate I am about this, and bicycles on our highways, my brother was killed 6 years ago west of Greeley, Colorado on his bicycle. It's a serious issue. It's a serious issue, folks. I drive by the rules of the road because I'm on the road with whatever vehicle I have. And when, God forbid, I have to ride my bicycle with my family on the streets and highways in Salida, Colorado, I actually stop at stop signs. I actually yield. And now we're saying, no, we don't need to be doing that. Now we're going to catch, according to what Representative Willett said, now we're going to catch those bicyclists that barrel through the stop sign. Last year, my wife came home in tears. I said, what's wrong? She said, I about hit a bicyclist because they blew through a stop sign and ended up on the hood of her car. So I go to the police and say, why don't you enforce that? Well, we don't have the personnel. So that very day, I go east of Salida, Colorado. There are 2 patrol cars waiting to catch someone going faster than 45 coming into town, which is not going to hurt anyone, and no one's downtown where all the 4-way stops are that bicycles blow through. Folks, I am passionate about this, and I'm not against bicyclists. I don't know why my brother wanted to ride a bicycle on the highways of Colorado. I don't understand. That's like me driving my Dodge truck in the Indianapolis 500. I can do it, but it's not a smart thing to do. But folks, if we start bending the rules anymore, these are rules of the road. I can't even ride my ATV on the highway, and it certainly is a lot safer in traffic than me being on a bicycle. But I can't do that because that's not safe. I ask that you vote against this. It is not safe, no matter what the bicyclists may say, that it's safer that they get out of the way. They just make an easier target because someone's coming through the stop sign on the other side. And I want bicyclists to be safe. But I don't think allowing them to treat stop signs as yield signs and blowing through intersections is going to make anyone any safer. And the problem with that is if I strike one of those bicyclists with my Dodge truck, guess who's going to be in the lawsuit? Guess who's going to be paying for that? It won't be the bicyclists that blew through that stop sign. It'll be me. I urge a no vote.
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Why, thank you. So I guess I have a question. I need some more information here, representatives. I don't have a Dodge truck with a mule. But I do understand that concept of how they also need that gunning stuff. I don't understand the right hook, that if the car is turning the right hook and the bicyclist is going this way, how not having them stop is going to stop this. To me, it seems counterintuitive. I don't understand the Boise study. Boise is, how many people are in Boise? And how many bicyclists and how many cars? I mean, is it similar to, Lamar? But I don't think it's similar to Denver. So maybe this rule should pertain to cities that are the same as Boise. I don't get it. I am trying I try to not hit bicyclists as it is. I feel like I am playing one of those pinball games where you are constantly moving around to avoid bicyclists as it is. So help me understand, other than saying this is safer, how is it safer?
Representative Willett or
Mr.
Hanson.
Attorney.
Representative Hanson.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The population of Boise, Idaho is 223,154 as of last year. So a medium-sized city, I think we can all agree. I do want to answer your question directly, though, because I brought this up in the personal story that I shared. Why would this bill help that situation with the right hook? And there's a couple of things that emerge from the studies that have been done on this. One is that the human eye tracks motion much better than it does stationary things. So if you've got somebody who's coming up to the intersection and the bicyclist is moving through that bike lane on the right-hand side, the driver sees that person moving and therefore avoids the conflict because they know that the bicyclist is there. The other thing that we know is that you're getting out of the blind spot. And so if you're stationary behind the car is not going to see you at all. Go ahead and proceeds with their right-hand turn, and that often leads to that right hook sort of situation if that is the case. So it's a little hard to tell exactly what is leading to that better safety from these studies, but as a bicyclist and some of the results from that work in Boise would indicate those are a couple of the factors that lead to increased safety.
Representative Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the good questions. Denver just also completed a study. 65% of the traffic collisions involving bicyclists occur at intersections, and the two most common are being struck from behind and the right hook that Representative Hanson has defined. They looked at studies from Boise, did their own studies. They looked at the experience in Frisco, Breckenridge, and Aspen. They also looked at a Berkeley, California study. This has been studied repeatedly with all the same results. This reduces accidents. You talk about lawsuits, guess what? This bill doesn't change anything. Bicyclists are treated as motor vehicles for all law, and this bill goes on to say the bicyclist has to yield to all traffic, pedestrians, other bike, anything in the intersection. So the liability exposure does not go up. In fact, I would say it makes it even harder on the bicyclist from that standpoint. What you don't want to do is hit a bike from behind when your foot slips off the brake pedal or you're texting. You are going to get sued in that event. So again, it's counterintuitive, but it's absolutely accurate. This is better for safety and liability exposure for motorists and truckers. And if Salida doesn't like it, which would be incredible since Salida is one of the most burgeoning bicycle economies in the state, both mountain and road cycling, written up in numerous national magazines from Monarch Crest to everything else around Salida, they don't have to enact it. Again, it's local control. So this is a very good bill, and the only thing that you can do is let your locals do their own decision making on this and let logic prevail. Thank you.
Representative Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L009 and ask that it be displayed.
Thank you. That's properly moved and is properly displayed. Representative Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill, this amendment makes it clear that this bill does not change, diminish, increase, or alter the authority of the state to regulate roads or highways. The bill just tells locals adopting an ordinance or resolution what the local ordinance or resolution should contain. The authority of the state, CDOT, and the State Transportation Commission is contained in Title 43. The bill does not amend any portion of Title 43. Whatever authority CDOT and the State Patrol have or do not have over state highways running through local jurisdictions remains the same, and this amendment makes that clear.
Representative Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Bridges. We consider this a friendly amendment and urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L009? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L009. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L009 passes. Back to the bill. Representative Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With all due respect to the bill sponsors, I was in Transportation Committee and I want to explain my no vote. When we talk about changing the rules, changing the laws for transportation, when we talk about roads, stop signs, we always forget, we always think it's between the bicyclists and the cars and pickups. We forget that there are people out there called commercial truckers. And my late husband was one of those. And I'll guarantee they're trained to watch on the right side. And to me, I just don't think it's fair that commercial truckers, cars and trucks, pickups, have to stop at stop signs and red lights, and the bikers get to go through. To me, it does not seem safer that they are going to be going through. That right hook looks to me like it'd be a lot worse. And you take a truck onto a bicycle, who's going to pay that insurance fine? Commercial insurance for truckers is very high. And let me remind you how much money commercial truckers spend on our highway system. Not only do they pay highway use tax, which is $550 a rig, they pay a portion tax for every state, a gross ton mile tax, and then they pay their fuel tax. So they're paying their way, but yet we're going to make special rules for bicyclists. I don't think so. That's why I opposed the bill in the committee, and I just wanted to explain it. I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask one of the sponsors of the bill a question, if I may. So I'm curious, so I just want to make sure, for a municipality, are there different variations of the towns? It was talked about Boise. Would this be applicable to small, medium, and large towns? And is it opt-in, opt-out? That's my first question.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Chair and Representative Liston, that's exactly right. This is an opt-in. This creates a statewide framework which then local governments would then choose how to apply these rules or if to apply these rules. So whether you were small, medium, or large, each of our home rule towns and municipalities across the state would be able to opt into this if they so choose.
Representative Liston.
Thank you. And also, thanks for that answer. Also, I'm curious, so on this, if a municipality adopts the rules where the person just has to do I'll call it a California stop, do they have to come to a dead stop, or do they have to at a stop sign and they turn or they go through it and there is an accident? Is the preponderance going to be against the bicyclist, or is it going to be against the automobile driver?
Representative Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Liston. This law doesn't change any of the liability laws whatsoever. So bicyclists are treated as motor vehicles. So if there is a failure to yield by that cyclist and they proceed and they cause an accident, they are liable. And in fact, I would argue that this bill even makes it tougher on a bicyclist because it specifically says that the bicyclists shall yield to all traffic in the intersection, including pedestrians, other cyclists, and cars.
Representative Liston.
Thank you. Well, and thanks for that explanation. And actually, this is just a comment. Just today, you know, there's a lot of bicyclists in and around the Capitol area, literally. And I would just suggest to the bicycle community, which I support generally, is people are blowing through our parking lot, not stopping out here at the stop signs, at the lights. And it's increasingly, in all seriousness, turning into a danger zone. I almost got hit today by a cyclist who was going through at a very high rate, and I was a pedestrian. So I would just maybe urge the State Patrol or somebody that they might want to be out here writing a few tickets in all sincerity, because they treat our parking lot like a free-flow highway sometimes. Just FYI. Thank you.
Let's try and keep it to the bill, folks. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize, Representative Hansen. I wasn't going to come up again, but Representative Willett called me out on Salida, so I had to. Folks, I want you to understand what's been said up here. It's already happening, so let's legalize it. Take a moment to list all the things you can think about off the top of your head that people are doing it, but it's not legal. Should we legalize all of those? And that would be an interesting list. That would be an interesting list. I was going to make a list, but I ran out of paper. One other statistic, Representative Willett, since you've been talking about all the statistics, I want to point out another statistic. 100% of all the bicycle wrecks involve bicycles. Okay? You also pointed out about they're treated as motor vehicles. No, they're not. There's no highway use tax. There's no licensing. I pointed out about my ATV. I paid licenses on that. Can't drive it on the road. In fact, I get fined for that, even though a lot of people drive them on the road. Maybe we should legalize that. I don't know. But we don't. We've got motor vehicles on our roads that are creating difficulties. You want me to quit, don't you? But this ain't going to happen, okay? We've got vehicles on our roadways that are not contributing to anything but congestion, accidents, and problems. And when you pointed out about Salaida's bicycle-friendly community, it is. I agree with that. I vote my conscience first, my constituents second. And I cannot in good conscience vote for a bill that turns loose motor vehicles to ignore traffic signs. I cannot do that. Therefore, I will not be voting to support this.
Representative Singh.
Just lower this from Representative Wilson here. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've heard some personal stories here today, and I've had stories too where people were struck by drunk drivers on their bicycles, left by the side of the road to die. My youth pastor was struck, went over a bridge, and he was so broken he couldn't crawl out of a small creek an inch deep and drowned. There are those stories out there, but this bill is about preventing those stories. Now, I haven't ridden as many thousands of miles as Representative Willett, probably ridden thousands of miles more than some, but this bill is about protecting those of us who do ride. This bill is about preventing those future accidents. Let me read something for you just real quick. This is out of the bill. A person riding a bicycle or electrical assisted bicycle and approaching an intersection of a roadway with a stop sign shall slow down and, if required for safety, stop before entering the intersection. If the stop is not required for safety, the person will slow down to a reasonable speed and yield the right-of-way to any traffic or pedestrian in or approaching the intersection. So this isn't carte blanche for bicyclists just to start blowing through intersections. But let me describe a situation to you. Bicycle versus semi, bicycle versus car, bicycle versus Dodge truck. Pick one of those. Mass times acceleration, who wins? When you're on a bicycle, you have to be on the defensive at all times. That means you look right, you look left, you look forward, and you look behind you. Why am I looking behind me? A lot of times I have a mirror on, but I'm looking behind me because I want to see if the person coming up to the intersection is texting and not paying attention. Because if that happens, and if I can't get out of the way fast enough, I will be hit. And it happens more often than you would think. This is very serious. You know, it doesn't matter how high of a gear I am in that bicycle. I am not going to have the power to get out of the way of a semi who's barreling through an intersection, or a car, or a truck. This is about safety. This is about common sense. This isn't about giving bicyclists a ticket to do anything they want. Lastly, I'm going to make one other point. This is an opt-in. A community can decide for itself if this is something they want to do. If they would like to give the freedom for us to ride and be safe and make those decisions to save our own lives. So I would urge a yes vote on this bill. I would urge a yes vote on this bill for many reasons. But keep in mind, your community can make this call. If your community has a lot of bicyclists, and they don't like them, or they do like them, they can opt to make this choice. I would like to see a statewide bill, but this is not what's presented before here. I'd like this to be even more robust than it is, but this is a fantastic start. And if a few of these communities opt in and do this, and we see that it works, maybe more communities will opt in. I sure hope they do. Thank you.
Thank you. For the first time I've heard mass times acceleration in the well. Representative Hansen.
Thank you so much. I think we've had a great discussion this morning. I want to thank Representative Wilson. I know this is a very personal issue for him, and given the loss of his brother, I did want to respond to one point that he did make, which was about this bill, in his perception, is about legalizing something just because everybody's doing it. I would disagree. I think Representative Willett and I have tried to present a piece of legislation that is about enhancing safety in Colorado. And I think the studies from around the country and in places that have had this in place for many, many years demonstrate that as part of our evidence that we bring forward with the bill, and that we have a chance here today to enhance safety in Colorado, and I urge your support.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 144. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Senate Bill 144 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1260.
House Bill 1260 by Representatives Janal and Jackson, House Senator Moreno, concerning prescription drug price transparency.
Representative Janal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1260 and the HIE report.
To the report. To the report.
The HIE report simply pushed out the timeline by 2 years, and that allows for companies a substantial lead time to prepare for the change in reporting. I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion of the HIE committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report passes. To the bill. Representative Janal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As many of you know, drug prices are continuing to skyrocket, while our constituents are facing unpredictable and uncomfortable budgets for their prescriptions, and we can't stand by as life-changing medications become increasingly out of reach for people who most need them. And Coloradans should never have to consider foregoing a drug because of exorbitant, unjustified, and unexplained price tag. Drug prices are a main health care cost driver. They account for 22% of every premium dollar that's spent, and the growth in drug prices is directly tied to the growth in premiums. In January, a poll of likely 2018 voters showed that 83% believed that the cost of prescription drugs were too high, 94% believe that the public should have access to the factors that contribute to the cost of their medications. And as policymakers, it's our duty. It's our duty to better understand these prices and to better safeguard our constituents and to ensure that they're being treated fairly. And that's why we're sponsoring House Bill 1260, a bill that's reasonably a reasonable approach towards understanding underlying costs, actually the top cost behind the prescription drug price increases. This bill provides an increased transparency for Colorado consumers. We have a responsibility to our consumers and to our constituents, and I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, folks, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I believe in this bill, House Bill 1260. I actually have constituents who are saying to themselves, gosh, am I going to be able to afford my prescription drugs, or am I going to be able to afford to pay my rent and put a roof over my head? In 2017, 1 in 10 Coloradans, guess what, did not fill a prescription because of costs. 1 in 10 Coloradans. House Bill 1260 attempts to help us understand this cost driver in healthcare more than we do right now by doing 3 things. It requires a 90-day advance notice of price increases from drug companies to purchasers. Those are health insurance companies, state departments, when there is a price increase of 10% or more over the prior 2 years. Talking 10% or more over the prior 2 years. Health insurance carriers and drug companies, hope y'all are hearing me here, both have to report to the DOI about drug prices. Carriers report on their top 25 drugs, and drug companies report on their drugs with 10% or higher increases. The DOI will then publish an annual report. What will this do, of course? This will help us, policymakers, better understand how prescription drug price increases are contributing to premium growth in Colorado. Folks, we know premiums are through the roof. This information will also be available during the SMART Act hearings and on the DOI website. Without this information, your constituents and us, policymakers, are at a disadvantage in our ability to engage in the discussions aimed at achieving more sustainable prices. We respectfully ask that you support House Bill 18-1260.
Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do really want to thank the sponsors for bringing this bill. It has been an interesting journey for us in the Health Insurance and Environment Committee over the last year. We've heard a lot about cost controls and how do we make the system more transparent. And I think as a committee, both Republicans and Democrats, we've learned a lot, and we're starting to understand what actually the word transparency means. It's not a mandate, and it's not a regulation. What it is what it's going to cost the customer. And in our healthcare system, we've heard hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of citizens come and talk about they don't know what they're paying for a service or a product at the time of purchase. In the healthcare system in Colorado, the customer has been shut out. This bill is well intended, and it wants to bring more transparency to how prices for medicines are set. And it requires the pharmaceutical manufacturers, and they are the first on the supply chain, to compile submit a report to the government about the increase of drug cost and report to the Division of Insurance and to the SMART Act. This is going to add layers and layers of regulatory burdens and on private sector and state agencies. And yet, because the manufacturers are first in the supply chain, it is not going to do anything for transparency or cost for our citizens on the ground, our consumers, when they're trying to figure out what does this product cost? How much is that drug? How much is that service? How much is that x-ray? How much is any kind of service that you're provided in the hospital? So this isn't going to add to any of that, and it's going to be, it will actually add more cost and add layers of bureaucracy. If we want true transparency, and I think it's been a learning experience for us on this committee, we have to go to the core of the problem. And that core is that people, consumers, don't know and are not told, even insurance companies won't tell you, what does that product cost? What does it cost me? What is the billing going to be? And billing transparency is not there. There is not a product that we have in this nation that when you buy it, you don't know the price. Like a Pepsi. I went to fill my car up with gas today and I bought a Diet Pepsi. It cost me $1.60. I can buy a bottle of Diet Pepsi in the vending machine here at the Capitol. It'll cost me $1. I buy the stuff in cases at home, and so I get that for about 40 cents a bottle. That's what's important to the consumer, what we pay. The negotiation of plastic or the ingredients, or the marketing or the transport, none of that matters. For us to have true transparency in the healthcare system, it's not having the manufacturer reporting to the SMART Act and other regulatory agencies about their cost. It comes to what the consumer pays. I would ask for a no vote. I do respect the intent to try to provide more transparency in the healthcare system, but this bill will not do that.
On transparency, Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I strongly urge a no vote on this bill. If we want to talk about transparency and what the public wants, we hear polling numbers and they want to have transparency. They want transparency at the point of sale. This bill has zero to do with that, nothing to do with that. If you ask the average person, should we be able to dig into your every minute detail of your business practices to give the government transparency on how you operate as a business? They would say, no, we don't want to give away our trade secrets. That's what this bill is truly about. I'm going to give the analogy I've continued to give in this. If you go into a restaurant and you buy a hamburger, the consumer wants to know, how much does this hamburger cost me? They don't want to know which company that restaurant contracted with to buy their ground beef. They don't want to know how much time that restaurant spent to formulate the perfect recipe for that hamburger. They don't want to know how much they're paying their cooks. They don't want to know how much the ground beef costs. And they want to know what is the price of the product that I am going to buy. And this bill has nothing to do with that point of sale transparency. It's all about digging into the trade secrets of the private companies. This is not going to help solve the problem of rising prescription costs. In fact, it's going to raise it, and it's going to stifle new products coming to the market. It's going to stifle these companies from wanting to actually invest heavily in R&D and new products that are actually going to save lives. It's going to prevent them from doing it. And so I urge a strong no vote. This bill is not about transparency at the point of sale for the consumer, for our constituents. This is only about government intervention into private companies, and I say no.
Any further discussion? Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I heard this bill in committee, and while I do recognize the sincerity of the sponsors that are trying to get some transparency into why our prices are so high, this actually doesn't do that. It doesn't. Giving transparency at one link of the supply chain does not give us transparency into why our pharma prices are so high right now. So again, just trying to shed light on one link, there's an entire chain there. What one of the persons came in, one of the groups that came in opposition said, is that it's not transparent if it's still fuzzy. And I actually wrote that little comment down because it is still fuzzy. This does not give the transparency that we would need. And my biggest problem was that it would require companies to give away proprietary data, which of course would be bad for business, which then in turn, of course, can cause prices to rise instead of lower. But it also is a problem because of HIPAA protections as well. One of the manufacturers that came in told us that manufacturers are not CORA protected, and that means they're not HIPAA protected either. So I think that we would be opening kind of a scary door by passing this bill and requiring these companies to give us all kinds of information that really wouldn't help us, and it certainly wouldn't help prices to be lowered either. So for those reasons, I urge a no vote on this bill.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good news here. The good news is I completely agree with the sponsors about the need for transparency on drug pricing and believe that the reasons for the bill are the exact reasons that we should be looking at for looking at lowering drug prescription costs. However, the only challenge that I have is the need to recognize the full scope of the issue. It is not just the pharmaceutical manufacturers that are involved in the drug cost. It is both the insurers and the pharmacy benefits managers as well. And so I'd like to make this a comprehensive bill that recognizes all those pieces. And so I'll first start by moving L005 and ask that it be displayed.
The amendment is properly before us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so, Mr. Chair, when we talk about transparency we want transparency for everyone involved. This would require the insurers who are involved in covering these costs to also provide information about the premiums that they are charging, the estimated percentage of total premiums to be charged to Colorado residents attributable to the cost of covered prescription drugs, the average monthly cost per covered person for the prior calendar year for all those covered prescription drugs divided by the number of persons enrolled in the health coverage plan, and a few more transparency pieces that would put the scope of the bill clearly on the same footing as the issue that is being addressed. And with something of this scope and this transparency, I think this would be a good addition to the bill and would provide us a greater view and impact on how we address these issues. So I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I appreciate Representative Pabone's comprehensive look at drug pricing, what we're really trying to get at is a level playing field and to start at the list prices that we begin with for everybody. The level of complexity that will be added by adopting this amendment will really muddy the waters and make it fuzzy. And so I think it's important to remember that. And so let's just start by looking at our list prices for our drugs before we add another level of complexity to that. And I'd also like to remind folks that there are 6.7% of Coloradans who are uninsured, so they are paying the list price when they go to fill their prescription drugs. And just because they don't have insurance doesn't mean that they don't get sick and need to fill prescriptions. So this does give them some clarity on what they are paying because they are not beneficiaries of negotiated prices through insurers or any rebates through PBMs. So I ask for a no vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Folks, again, this bill also requires additional reporting from insurance companies, and the state of Colorado already requires regular transparency and disclosure reporting for health plans to help control costs and to justify price increases. So I would ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Representative Janal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I consider this an unfriendly amendment, but I want to thank Representative Pabone for bringing this forward. It's been brought up several other times, but members, where do you start? Where do you start? You start at the top. You start at the wholesale acquisition cost, because that's where all the negotiations begin. And they go down to the buyers, the PBMs, and the insurers, and everybody else. But what determines the cost for those people in the middle is the price of the drug at the top, at the wholesale acquisition cost. I hear people saying, well, you know, we're giving away trade secrets. We're not giving away any trade secrets. We're looking at over 2 years period of time that a pharmaceutical manufacturer tell us and insurance companies if they're going to increase the cost of a drug over 10%. I think that's fair. Adding other people into here right now, I consider this an unfriendly amendment. Thank you.
Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I also rise in opposition to this amendment. I don't think it's necessary, and I think it's overbroad. I think what the bill, as it's currently drafted, is very carefully crafted and very targeted as to the most relevant information that is going to be gathered and produced, and in the effort to create transparency. But I don't think that this is really. I think this is overbroad and this is overly invasive, actually. So I don't think that this amendment is necessary. So I am in opposition. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion of the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L005. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. That amendment fails. Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, never to be deterred, I move L006, and it asks that it be displayed.
The amendment is properly before us. Please proceed, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, just addressing the full scope of this issue, I think we ought to also shed some light on what our pharmacy benefit managers do as well in this arena. Also has some reporting requirements for them. For each drug for which the pharmacy benefit manager received a notification or a rebate, as it may be, regarding a particular drug. And given the need to find the right balance in this very complex issue, feel that there also needs to be some transparency here. So again, I want to solve the problem that the sponsors do as well. I just want to make sure we do it in a comprehensive fashion and ask for an aye vote.
Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question for the sponsor of this amendment. So as a consumer, how do I get a hold of the commissioner to find out how much it's going to cost me at the time of service? I mean, to me, this seems like it's more government involved, more government oversight, which they don't really have, because this, even if you do report it, there's no action taken. So as a consumer, am I going to have to call the commissioner up to ask him for that information or go on a separate website? As a consumer, how do I know what I pay for a product at the time of purchase?
To the process, Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is basically just a quarterly report that is provided from the pharmacy benefit manager to the commissioner. The rules will be set by the commissioner for both what that form looks like as well as how it can be reviewed by the consumer or anyone in particular. So I don't think it's the additional red tape that you might think it is, but I also think it's good for transparency and open government and good public process.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, members, for much of the same reasons that you heard arguments against the previous amendment, in that, yeah, there's a lot of things that are driving up the cost of health care, and we are trying to get at one. So I would see this as an unfriendly amendment. And again, members, I ask for your no vote.
Representative Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a very interesting philosophical debate that we're having here, and it's almost, I look at this amendment and the previous one, and I'm kind of thinking, well, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. But unfortunately, I don't think it's good for the goose either, so I will have to oppose the amendment. But this is an interesting concept that here we have a lot of other folks in competing interests that are okay with this bill until they're on the menu too, and then now they're against it. So this is an interesting concept, but I'm still going to say no because I think this is just bad policy for everyone, and we need to get back to actual consumer point of sale transparency, not digging into business practices.
Any more discussion of geese on the amendment? Seeing no more discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L006. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. That amendment is lost. To the bill, is there any further discussion of House Bill 1260? Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for educational purposes, I asked for an illustration to be distributed, and this is only on drug pricing. What this what this bill is looking at is just controlling pricing, controlling the market, and negotiations in just the manufacturer wholesaler area. We've got a whole bunch of other issues as far as rebates and the PBMs that impact this. And so this bill in its purity is about regulations, mandates, and control pricing. We really need to get down to cost to the consumer. And that is where in healthcare we will have true pricing at the point of sale. What is that going to cost me? I ask for a no vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question, Representative Neville.
Members, just to recap here, thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, just to recap here, this bill is not transparency at the point of sale. And we've heard over and over that these negotiations start at the top down. And any sort of market-based solution out there, it always starts with the consumer. And the consumer starts with the negotiations. It doesn't start the top down. We go back to that restaurant example. We don't sit there and dig into how much each restaurant who's going to sell me a hamburger is paying for their bulk ground beef. We get back to what does the hamburger cost? This bill does not do that. It gets into their private contracts, into their trade secrets, and it's going to have a chilling effect on the R&D and the investment in new drug development that will save lives. It will absolutely have that chilling effect. I urge a no vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1260. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. That bill passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we rise and report.
You've heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
House will come to order. Mr. Randall, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your committee whole big state report has introduced the following attached bills, being a second reading of the overriding supply recommendations on House Bill 1260 is amended, House Bill 3055 is amended, passed second reading, gross place counter for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 66, Senate Bill 71, Senate Bill 144 is amended, Senate Bill 195, Senate Bill 202 passed second reading, revised place counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1272, Senate Bill 156 laid over until April 13, 2018, retaining the place on the calendar.
Representative Bridges. All right, members, you have heard the motion. There are no amendments at the desk. Mr. Randall, please open the machine. Members, please proceed to vote. Representative Coleman, Representative Danielson, Representative, oh, that's it. Representative Coleman. Please close the machine. With 57 yes votes, 6 no votes, and 2 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Are you? Message from the Senate.
Madam Speaker, the Senate has adopted the first report of the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1322. The bill has been repassed as amended. The bill is transmitted herewith. The Senate has adopted the first report of the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1329. The bill has been repassed as amended. The bill is transmitted herewith. The Senate has voted to dissolve the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1338. The Senate has voted to adhere to its position on House Bill 1338. The bill is returned herewith. The Senate has postponed indefinitely House Bill 1274 and 1149.
Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to suspend the rules for immediate consideration of the conference committee reports for House Bill 1322, 1338, and 1340.
No, we don't have 1340. No. 1329. 1329.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry. It'll be House Bills 1322, 1329, and 1338.
And Mr. Randall, will you please read the report on 1322 as well?
First report of the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1322. This report amends the re-revised bill. To the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, your First Conference Committee appointed on House Bill 1322 concerning the provision for payment of the
Thank
expenses.
you, Mr. Randall. That report will be printed in the Journal. All right, so there is a motion on the table. Seeing no objection, that motion stands. With that, Representative Hamner. Oh, Mr. Randall, please read the title.
House Bill 1322 by Representative Hamner, also Senator Lambert, concerning the provision for payment of expenses of the executive, legislative, and judicial departments of the state of Colorado and of its agencies and institutions for and during the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018, except as otherwise noted.
All right, thank you, Mr. Randall. Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House adopt the first report of the First Conference Committee for House Bill 1322.
All right, would you like to tell us why?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Why, yes, I would. Colleagues, this is the long bill. It has come back to us from the Senate. The Senate approved the Conference Committee report this morning, 35-0. And this is the report from the Conference Committee that met yesterday afternoon. We are really pleased with the great work that took place between all of the Joint Budget Committee members, your colleagues right here, my colleagues, our colleagues in the House who serve with me on the Joint Budget Committee. We were able to review all of the amendments that were passed in either the House or the Senate, and the House and the Senate. We were able to adopt 20 of those amendments in this Conference Committee report. We were also able to strike a good compromise with the description of the use of $35 million for school safety purposes. We added a footnote that had been presented on one of the orbital bills. We were able to add that footnote regarding severance tax transparency that Representative Rankin can describe in more detail into the long bill. We were able to add another capital project for a fire alarm system at the Arkansas Valley Correctional Facility. We are very pleased with the work that took place in the Budget Committee. All of these motions that we made yesterday in the Conference Committee passed on a vote of 6-0. So I'm very pleased to bring this Conference Committee report to you and ask for your support.
Further conversation, Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'll ask for a yes vote as well. I think this year we were able to very carefully consider all those amendments that passed in both houses. In some cases they were similar but not identical, and we worked through the differences. We also then looked at every amendment that was passed by one house but not the other and considered that, and in some cases have considered a split decision where we tried to take into account a halfway position. So I think it's just excellent work on behalf of our staff, all of you, we had some really thoughtful amendments this year, and I think we really appreciated as we went through them the depth of thinking and the, in some cases, very strong feelings that went behind some of these amendments. I think we've done a good job, and I definitely ask for a yes vote on the conference committee.
All right, further discussion? All right, seeing none, Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Beckman. Please close the machine. With 59 yes votes, 4 no votes, and 2 excused, that motion passes. Representative Beckman, that'll be $3. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1322.
All right, the question before us is a repassage of House Bill 1322. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 46 yes votes, 17 no votes, and 2 excused, House Bill 1322 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. All right. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1329.
House Bill 1329, by Representative Rankin, House Senator Moreno, concerning supplemental state payment to qualified providers of durable medical equipment who experienced a decrease in the reimbursement in 2017-18 state fiscal year as a result of the implementation of the federal 21st Century Cures Act and in connection with making an appropriation.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House adopt the first report of the first conference committee on House Bill 1329.
All right, properly moved. Would you like to tell us why?
So this is the durable medical equipment bill. The bill itself originally was $6 million. There was a lot of discussion about how much we should support the durable medical equipment vendors because the federal government had retroactively changed rates. So we had recommended in the original bill $6 million. There was no amendment in the House. The Senate asked for $3 million of additional money. So the conference committee splits the difference and adds $1.5 million. The amended version changes the dates and changes the amount. So I ask for a yes vote.
Further discussion? Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I also ask for a yes vote on this bill. I think it shows good compromise between the House version and the Senate version, so I ask for a yes vote. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further discussion. Mr. Randall, please open the machine. And members, please proceed to vote on the motion to adopt the first report of the first conference committee. Representative Crowther. Please close the machine. With 49 yes votes, 14 no votes, and 2 excused, that motion is adopted. Representative Crowther, that'll be $2. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1329.
Question before us is a repassage of House Bill 1329. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 50 yes votes, 13 no votes, and 2 excused, House Bill 1329 is passed. Repassed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. All right, Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1338.
House Bill 1338, Representative Rankin, also Senator Lambert, concerning transfers to address the reduction of revenues in the severance tax operational fund.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the conference committee be discharged and the House recede from its position on House Bill 1338.
All right, would you like to tell us why?
This was, we, the House, put an amendment on this bill that asked for more information, transparency on severance tax collections, the revenue side. When we went to when we discussed this, we found that the Department of Revenue really doesn't have the information, nor do they have the ability to collect it. So what we did, and we didn't discuss this, but in the long bill itself, there will be a footnote and an RFI, a request for information, which asks the Department of Revenue to tell us what resources they would need in order to collect and analyze the information that we had originally asked for in our amendment that went along. So in light of that request and what will subsequently happen when we get that information, we feel that our amendment on 1338 is no longer required, therefore discharging the committee and receding from our position.
Representative Futt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just very quickly, I support this motion. It was the amendment that I had offered, you may remember. And I want to thank, first of all, the bill sponsor as well as members of the JBC for working with this issue. And the issue, I think, was addressed in a large way by putting on that footnote on 1322. And it really will help get us to an answer, at least hopefully get us to an answer about this question as to, with production so high, why is it that our severance taxes are so low? And that's really what we're trying to get at, and I think that the footnote on 1322 will help us address that. So thank you again to the bill sponsor and to JBC for working this in.
All right. Further discussion, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just quickly, members, I do ask for a yes vote on this motion. The fact that we were able to resolve this issue because of the great work between Representatives Foote and Rankin, we were able to take care of this issue in the long bill, therefore there was no need for the conference committee to do anything to House Bill 1338. So please vote yes. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 63 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 2 excused, that motion passes. Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the House concur in the Senate amendments. 2, House Bill 1338. Thank you.
All right, properly moved. Further discussion.
Well, the Senate did make some changes, and since we're adopting their version, we need to accept those. They're fairly minor. This is a fairly complex bill because it uses some general fund monies to true up some severance tax programs that were funded by severance taxes, and then it says that if we collect additional severance taxes in the future, they be used to pay back. So it got rather complex, and the Senate made some good changes, I think, in this case, so I urge a yes vote.
All right. Question before us is a motion to concur in Senate amendments. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 63 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 2 excused, the motion to concur in Senate amendments is passed. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1338 as amended.
All right, the question before us is the repassage of House Bill 1338 as amended. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 44 yes votes, 19 no votes, and 2 excused, House Bill 1338 is repassed as amended. Last but not least, co-sponsors. All right, please close the machine. All right, with that, announcements and introductions. Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As if that isn't enough work for the Joint Budget Committee, the Joint Budget Committee will be meeting upon adjournment. So let's get on over there. We have other work to do with bills and stuff, but thank you.
Well, and to the Joint Budget Committee members, thank you for all of your hard work. Wonderful job. Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Health Insurance and Environment Committee will be meeting this afternoon in room 107, and we're going to be hearing 3 bills: Senate Bill 130, House Bill 1321, and House Bill 1294.
All right, Representative Liston is who I saw next.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, just a reminder to come meet your friendly eye surgeons this afternoon down at the U Club from 5:30 to 7:30. Not only can you hear what they have to say, you can see what they have to say. Thank you.
Representative McLaughlin and Representative Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
With permission of the House leadership,
We would like to be here tomorrow. We figured there were so many people who were going to be gone that
we just want to make sure that you know that we are going to be here, even though the rest of you are not
want to make sure
going
it's
to be
okay.
here. So.
We're going to be here.
You don't need approval for that.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
But I'm sure the voters approve. Further announcements or introductions. Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Business Affairs and Labor Committee. Exciting day today with House Bill 1220, Bitcoin dealers. See you there.
Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Transportation and Energy, we will meet 10 minutes upon adjournment, 10 minutes, 1354 and 1359. See you there.
Representative Harrod. And Representative Hansen.
Thank you, members. This is my daily reminder that this week is National Library Week. Yay for libraries. Come on down if you want to talk about something exciting or your favorite library in your district. One thing I want to note, since the weather is getting better, you can actually go to your local library and get a park pass and a backpack to help you navigate our amazing parks throughout the state. So if you're looking at taking folks out this weekend, make sure to go by to the library and get your pass.
Representative Hansen.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. And I would just add, in the spirit of Library Week and sharing the spirit of my good friend from Colorado Springs about the good news, the voters of Denver decided to invest tens of millions of extra dollars into their libraries over the last few years. In fact, there was such an outcry when library hours were cut that this became an immediate ballot issue for the city to consider. And that investment has paid off tremendously for the citizens of our great city, including my 2 children who are lifetime members of the Summer Reading Club, both of them earning tickets to Elitch's Gardens. So I am so proud to be part of the library program here in Denver. Let us all celebrate our libraries across the state.
Thank you. Further announcements or introductions? Representative Foote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. State Affairs, we are meeting at 11:35, and LSBA will be doing 3 bills. House Bill 1216, Senate Bill 196, and Senate Bill 15 for action only. So starting at 11:35. Thank you.
All right. Further announcements or introductions? Going once, going twice. Seeing no further announcements or introductions. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that we stand in recess until 1 o'clock today.
All right. Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until 1 p.m. today.